week 11 of the fantasy football season. He has a few wide receivers I have his sleepers this week. The first receiver, Mac Hollins of the New England Patriots. Mac Hollins, last week he had a big game for this New England Patriot team. Thursday night versus a depleted New York Jet defense, where obviously they traded away Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, two best defenders, and Kayshon Boutte. He's going to miss this ball game once again. So Mac Hollins has had a couple pop games here this season, and 3 out of 4 games, 7 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues. Week 7 at Tennessee, a carry 4 yards, 2 catches, 49 yards. Week 8 versus Cleveland, 7 catches, 89 yards in that one. Week 9, didn't do anything, 2 catches, 9 yards versus Atlanta. And then week 10 at Tampa Bay, the big game, 6 catches, 106 yards on 10 targets. So he's a big target. 6'5", 6'6" is Mac Hollins. He could burn a secondary with that deep ball threat he's become throughout his career. But he's been a journeyman that every season he's on team to team. But like I said, his deep ball prowess makes him a good option this week here versus the New York Jets secondary that can't stop anyone. And like I said, besides Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry, this passing game really doesn't have much going on, so he's definitely a sleeper option this week, available in 97% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver, Malik Washington of the Miami Dolphins, out there in 82% of fantasy leagues. Washington did find the end zone last week for this Miami Dolphin team, and he's not going to be a big-time play receiver, but he's another guy where there's not much going on in that passing game besides Jalen Waddle and Achane out of the backfield for a third guy to step up and make some plays. In the last few weeks, serviceable is Washington. Week 8 at Atlanta, 4 catches, 36 yards, a touchdown. Week 9 versus the Ravens, 3 carries, 13 yards, 3 catches, 48 yards, a fumble loss. And Week 10 versus Buffalo, 2 catches, 9 yards, a touchdown on 3 targets. So this week, a good matchup, international game. Commanders give up the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. And like I said, there's not much going on in this offense where opportunities will be there for Washington at times. And also as well, they've used him as a gadget guy this season in different formations, on jet sweeps and end arounds. And the final receiver, Greg Dortch of the Arizona Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett back in there once again is quarterback with Kyler Murray. I believe we won't see him the rest of the season for this Arizona Cardinal team. And Marvin Harrison, he's out this week with an injury and should be back next week as Marvin Harrison. So Dortch, so far this season, he's had a minimal role in this offense. But like I said, now with Marvin Harrison out of the lineup, Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch will be the top 2 wide receivers in this ball game in the starting lineup. So the last few weeks for Dortch, like I said, we haven't seen much. Week 6 at the Colts, 3 catches, 9 yards, a touchdown. Week 7 versus Green Bay, 2 catches, 5 yards. Week 9 at Dallas, a carry, 9 yards. And Week 10 at the Seahawks, 2 rush yards on 2 carries and a rushing touchdown. So Dortch, he's another guy as well. They use him in different formations, use him as a gadget guy. But this week, they're going to have to have him step up more with obviously the number 2 option in the offense, and Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the lineup. So with those factors and Dortch, at least he's been getting some playing time here and there. In deeper leagues, he's a sleeper option this week, available in 99% of fantasy leagues. That's a few wide receivers I have as sleepers for week 11 of the fantasy football season.